Why hello you amazing beautiful people, and welcome back to another Taylor Swift Friday. How is everybody doing? So I have received a lot of recommendations for what videos should continue on these Taylor Swift Fridays, and all of you know you control this channel. Your recommendations in the comment section are what controls my reactions, and easily the number one most requested is Red. All of you want me to do a full album reaction to Red. Apparently I've only done half of the songs. You guys want me to check out every single one. I believe that was the most requested, right? So there was also something else that was recommended a lot, and I think it makes the most sense for us to do this before we do Red. And that is Taylor Swift's songwriting process on Evermore. Now, this is an Apple Music interview that they conducted. A lot of people told me it is an amazing interview, and considering we just finished reacting to all of Evermore, and I have said that I think it is her best lyrical written album, and I stand by that. I think the lyrics are masterfully well created. I feel like this is just perfect, and you guys are right, this is perfect to follow on from our Evermore reaction. So that is what we are going to do, and then once we finish this over this week and next week, then of course we will jump into reacting to Red, as you have all recommended. So get comfy, go grab yourself a nice hot drink, press that like button if you haven't done so already to support this video, and subscribe if you aren't subscribed. Press that subscribe button, and let's jump into my first time ever reaction to the highly requested interview of Taylor Swift on her writing process around Evermore.
Taylor Swift is Apple Music Songwriter of the Year for 2020. Congratulations, and thank you for bringing us not one but two incredible albums this year. These records just steeped in imagery and escapism and romance and heartache, and just remarkable examples of you as a songwriter we've always known, but masterclass stuff. So thanks so much for showing up twice this year, Taylor.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's amazing. We just put out Evermore yesterday, so I'm in this state of like exhaustion but relief but very proud. So
I was gonna ask,
songwriter of the year, understatement. All right, Evermore is just fucking perfect, man. Writing wise, perfect.
you actually how it feels, because I mean you've done this a few times now, working up the morning after a record's finally come out, and I think as fans, we all know the effort and the energy that you put into not just writing the songs and getting them complete, but preparing the release of the music and ensuring that we're as engaged as possible. So when it's all out and about and that whole process finally kind of comes to an end for the time being, how do you feel the next morning? Are you well rested? Is the energy too intense? What's the situation?
I feel differently today than I felt the day after releasing Folklore, because even the day after releasing Folklore, Aaron and I were still bouncing ideas back and forth. And we just knew we were going to keep writing music. I didn't know if it was for an album of mine or Aaron and Justin Vernon have a really amazing project called Big Red Machine. So we kept writing thinking maybe we were going to do some Big Red Machine stuff, but the things that we ended up writing really sounded more like a continuation of Folklore. So when I put out Folklore, I remember just feeling so proud and happy, but still like foot on the gas, like let's keep going, this is fun, I'm not finished with this.
Because obviously we know these two came kind of back to back, they're sister albums in a way, in that regard, right? So that makes a lot of sense. I didn't know it was that seamless in the writing process, but you can definitely hear and feel that.
And everybody, all my collaborators, we all felt the same way about it, so we just kept going. With this one, I have this feeling of sort of quiet conclusion and sort of this weird serenity of like we did what we set out to do, and we're all really proud of it, and that feels really, really nice.
I'm not surprised, because I feel like the stories, to some degree, there's some conclusion in this album too, from where you began on Folklore, and there's so much closure on this new record, and I want to dive into aspects of that, and I just feel like the future must feel wide open to you right now. But
quite
I want to refer
by
back
the way.
to the
Quite
long con
literally.
sessions, and Jack Antonoff said something really poignant, which was, I've never made an album like this, I don't know if I ever will again.
Yes.
And in your mind and in your heart, you knew you wanted to carry on and there was music to be done, but it felt like for others, assuming that Jack was genuine because he's an honest human, he wasn't sure there would be an Evermore or a chance to work like this again. Was there a sort of a melancholy to the end of Folklore?
Not really. I was just so happy that my world felt opened up creatively.
Wait, Jack said that quote after Folklore, not Evermore. That's very curious, because I would say Evermore and Folklore are very similar. Now, I personally lean towards, I don't know which one I prefer, but even with the brilliance of Folklore, I still think Evermore, I feel like I've got hair in my hat somewhere, it's just bugging me. Even with the brilliance of like the writing around Folklore, I feel like their writing is even better in Evermore. But I'm confused. I'm confused and curious as to why Jack said that, considering they were still writing songs after Folklore came out that were very Evermore-esque and Folklore-esque, and how close these albums are to each other. So it's funny how Jack said that and then was just completely wrong.
There was a point where I got to as a writer who only wrote very diaristic songs that I felt it was unsustainable from my future moving forward. It felt like too hot of a microscope. It felt a bit like I was very personal. I was like, why am I just like, if I'm writing about my life and all it is, on my bad days, I would feel like I was loading a cannon of clickbait when that's not what I want for my life. And I think that when I put out Folklore, I felt like if I can do this thing where I get to create characters in this mythological American town or wherever I imagine them, and I can reflect my own emotions onto what I think they might be feeling, and I can create stories and characters and arcs and all this stuff, but I don't have to have it feel like when I put out an album, I'm just like giving tabloids ammunition and stuff.
Yeah, there's so much judgment that would come along with every record.
Yeah, and constantly kind of like examining yourself in a way that feels like I felt like there would be a point in my life where I could no longer really do that and still maintain a place of like good mental health and emotional health and all that. So what
it must be so, like, because no one else does it like Taylor. It must be so interesting in a bizarre way for Taylor, because when she puts out these albums, it is a big spotlight on her life, and there's nothing personal to her anymore because she shares everything personal with the world, and all that information immediately goes to the tabloids. And then if they write things about it and Taylor sees it, she's going to look at those situations in her own life a different way, like she has done in the past, and it's going to make her feel differently. It could make her feel more negative about situations, and it's going to affect her differently, and all of those things were constantly happening because of how she was writing music, very personal and intimate, which obviously a lot of us fell in love with Taylor for those reasons, and she still does it very much now. But it definitely feels like Evermore and Folklore gave her the power to understand that it doesn't always need to be about her. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in an empowering way, that she, being asked that question so many times, what happens when you run out of stories and all these questions that people would ask her, and she just pretty much released these albums saying, this is what happens. The show keeps going. I have the skills to keep writing music, and maybe I don't always need to share every aspect of my life with the world, and I can keep some things to me, and I can still, drip feed some things out here and there. And I feel like it honestly felt like this was a very amazing, therapeutic, emotional step for Taylor.
But I felt after we put out Folklore was like, oh wow, people are into this too, this thing that feels really good for my life and feels really good for my creativity. It feels really good for them too. Oh my God. I saw a lane for my future that it was a real breakthrough moment of excitement and happiness. And I kind of referred to writing these songs as a flotation device because obviously this year is hell on earth for everyone. And seeing what your fellow humans are going through. The Long Pond studio sessions was the first time that Jack, Aaron, and I were in the same room. And I still haven't been in the same room with Justin Vernon, who has now collaborated on 2 albums heavily, and we've talked, but we've just never been in the same space together. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, how was that experience when you first caught up together and saw each other having made this amazing body of work? Because we saw it on camera. There was this giddiness and this idea of like, wow, we did it, we made it, now we can celebrate it and make it real to some degree. But what was going on behind the camera? That's what I think we all want to know, is when you all first saw each other before the cameras rolled, what was happening then? Because that's a truly human experience that I don't think you or anyone has ever been through before, where the stakes were so high for remote recording, and then you all come together and it's like, wow, how do we even translate this?
It was such a strange thing because we'd been on, group chats, and it just wasn't ever the combination yet. So the combination of the 3 of us was like this strange feeling of, I remember I walked into the studio, they were already rehearsing, and I walked in and it was just like they were a band. It didn't, it wasn't that feeling of awkwardness between them because I guess they'd had their moment. I walked in
that's
and I
so
heard them
cool.
playing August or something, and I was just sitting there thinking, this is exactly how I would have wanted it. I would have wanted this, reunion or union at all to happen.
That's a really cool like imagery, isn't it? That Taylor just walks in and it feels like it's a band. She walks in and it's her band. Oh, it's my band. Even though it's not. It's like it's everyone who's working on this album, but that's what it felt like to her. My band.
The
Hello,
moment of me
hello,
walking
the
in on
band.
them creating music and rehearsing and playing instruments and I just started rehearsing too, and it was such
Love
a vibe.
that.
And it couldn't really have been. I couldn't have asked for more under the circumstances. It's so fun to make a record when you've got people in the room and you've got that energy that's bouncing off the walls. But if you can't do that, this was a pretty close second.
Yeah, I mean, no one's been able to do that. Very rarely have people been able to get into a room and get that tactility and that chemistry that we all, I guess, to some degree became so accustomed to. And
especially when you talk to people online. I mean, even like online dating. I've never like been a part of online dating because I met my wife like 11 years ago or something at this point. So I've been out of the dating game for a long time. I say to my wife now, if I was single now, I'd be fucked. I would be doomed. So thank you. I have her to save me from just damnation. But what I'm trying to say is like even online dating, where I can only presume there'll be that awkwardness when you first meet someone, Yeah, you've been talking online, you meet them, and there's that awkwardness because you're so used to having these conversations online. Now you're with someone you've spoken about a lot, and having that like everything's been online, now it's in person. Having that like awkwardness, and it's amazing and rare, much like the interviewer is saying, for not to have that, just to click. And obviously they know each other, so it's not the same. But there's been that divide for so long. Just meet and it just clicks. That must be awesome.
Tactility and that chemistry that we all, I guess, to some degree became so accustomed to. And, I think about this year, you talked about it and you put it in the perfect framework. But it's also taught us a lot about stillness and what it is to be still and what it is to reflect and to be
I like that.
Comfortable in our own skin. And I think
Slow down
human
in
beings
life.
by nature search for coping mechanisms and distractions to avoid that. And in your case, I've always felt that you've moved so fast. And even if you've taken some time between projects, it's clear you're working on things all the time. What has this process of working on Folklore and Evermore, busy year for you as a songwriter, but also, has it taught you something about stillness, and has it altered
What a great question.
attitude
What a great
toward
question, especially
pace
for someone like
productivity
Taylor, who
and
is
what motivates you?
so
Yes, it has
constant
changed
moving.
everything about the way that I do what I do. It
Great
gave me a
question.
perspective of, I was pretty upset when my shows all got canceled and I realized I wasn't going to be able to connect with my fans in the way that I'm traditionally used to. Just a normal human interaction I couldn't do anymore,
Especially after an album like Lover, which is just like such a communal, joyous experience. I can imagine it's like, wow, I'm going to get to bring this to life,
Yeah, and I think we all felt that way. I think the fans felt that way too, where we were just sitting there going, wow, I think that would have been fun. But what it did was, when you plan a live show, I guess at least when I do it, I'm writing interstitial music. I'm planning, this set piece goes off while this goes on, while we distract them over here, and this song calls for this, and this song calls for that, and that's all creating. And I don't think I really assigned very much merit to the fact that that is creating. When you're taking music you've already made and an album that you've already made, and you're choreographing and you're setting up a live spectacle that is taking up so much emotional, creative, and imagination-based bandwidth in your brain. So if you take all of that away,
imagination-based bandwidth. Do you know what's great? Is that makes so much sense. Taylor just birthing this random like mixed words, and it's like imagination-based bandwidth. You know what? Actually makes perfect sense, and it's like, yeah, I totally get what she means. Love that.
What happens, and I guess I learned that
I love
it's
that
very
painting
possible for me
behind
to
her. That
write
mural looks
more
amazing.
music with that creative bandwidth. As musicians, we're so used to immediately touring, immediately putting together the show, immediately going into rehearsals, and then we always feel that we need a pretty big break, or at least a significant gap of time where we get to rest afterward. And I guess I learned that when we're on the road, it's not just that we're sweating and we're meeting a million people and we have all this back and forth of just energy of meeting this person, trying to get a surprise guest to surprise the crowd and all this stuff that happens on tour. It's also the creation of the show itself that is taking up a lot of your brain space. So without that, this just happened naturally on its own.
Is there a dysfunction to that, do you think, looking back on it now? Is there a correlation between some of the kind of more hard to manage parts of your life?
I do want to take just a moment to compliment the interviewer. Absolutely outstanding job. Every question flows brilliantly. The atmosphere feels very calm and relaxed. I think even Taylor is giving off that demeanor of like being at ease and comfortable here. Brilliant interviewer.
And the pace at which things go and how careers become these kind of entities unto themselves?
Yes and no. I think that looking back on my career, there have been so many different musical phases and, different things I wanted to wear at different times, and they fit my life at the time. And so I think that you've got to allow yourself that grace to put on a certain lifestyle or a certain outfit or a certain creative mantra and then discard it when you outgrow it. This was weird though, because this Evermore was the first time I didn't discard everything after I made something
Just
new.
the way of describing.
It was weird. I actually had to kind of fight off anxiety that I had in my head, like fear that was like, you need to change. Like the demons are here. Like, you need to change. You can't stay in the forest.
That's a very good point as well. All of Taylor's music, when we hear her talking about this, everything is like almost like a photo picture, like a snapshot of her emotions in situations, right? And every album that she's created, she's always said that she creates the next one, and when she's writing this album, she's thinking about this album. When this album comes out, she's already writing this album, and they're different emotions. And when she's going on tour and performing these songs live, she's behind the scenes writing the next album with a completely different emotional feel as well. So it's amazing how she does always go, this is the album, it conveys these emotions, and then when it's done, she goes, clip, here's the next album, it conveys these emotions. And with Evermore and Folklore in this period in her life, she didn't have that for the first time ever. That's actually something I didn't even think about.
I was like, I want to stay in the forest.
But the forest is such a weird place because when you're a kid, and I think aesthetically that's a big part, a significant part of what's made this so immersive, this experience, is that idea of stepping into the unknown. And when you're a kid, like this idea of wide open water is really scary, not knowing what's underneath. Being out in the forest and looking directly into trees that could go on forever, is kind of an intimidating type of image. And yet you made it feel like something that was intimate, like you wanted to go into that. How did that kind of relate to the music? Because it's such an essential part of these two albums, the way that it looks and feels.
I think that working with Aaron, the music that we were making, he was writing instrumentals and I was writing the melodies and the lyrics. And what ended up happening was I think we just gravitated towards what both of us simultaneously felt made us feel cozy, which was nature. So many people during the pandemic just were going on hikes and trying to get outside because nature symbolized this strange comfort all of a sudden, where
I remember, because I followed the Sidemen quite heavily during the pandemic and everything here in England, like as YouTubers, and it was really fun following them and what they were doing. And I remember the first video they released where they all got to go out and see each other and they had to keep like 2 meters apart. And I remember when all of us got to do that, and you'd go to like someone's like garden or something and you'd sit 2 meters away from each other and all of that. And yeah, there was something really special about that moment.
Where everything was completely off kilter and nobody could really figure out how to get their bearings. And so we all went outside, or we all tried to go camping, or tried to go hiking, or go on drives.
I can't believe this even happened.
I think that Aaron's music and my music both reflected sort of that feel, with Aaron's such an amazing instrumentalist, and his instrumentals that he was writing were all very kind of dreamscapes. And so it's not that this album is all about like the forest and the woods and stuff. It's got hints of that, and there's a lot of kind of the lyric. One thing I wanted to do with Folklore is I wanted it to represent spring and summer. And when I made Evermore, I knew that I wanted to fill in the rest of the seasons of the year and have it reflect fall and winter. So that's another element that nature came into it. But also it was the easiest way that we could do a photo shoot. You can't
Amazing how the seasons all felt different. Like it's amazing how Folklore and Evermore feel hand in hand, click together brilliantly. But when you think about the seasons, you can see that too. So somehow they click together as an entire year of seasons, but then are separated by those seasons themselves. It's just honestly, it's just fucking genius.
I haven't had a haircut by anyone except for myself since lockdown started. And that's kind of how it's been, like
I think her hair looks awesome.
How can I make art and make visuals that go with this art where I can't.
How many people cut their own hair during lockdown? How many people? Go look at my older videos around that sort of period of time. And you'll notice that like I just used to shave the sides of my head and just let the top grow. I like learned to cut my hair. I got the right scissors and that sort of stuff. How many other people did the same?
Ask my hair and makeup people and my stylist to quarantine for 2 weeks away from their families. I'm not going to ask them to do that.
Yeah, good point.
And ask them to fly and expose themselves to the virus. So how can I possibly make a cover on my own? Could I just sort of DIY this? So I asked, I asked my friends if I could use their field and their woods, and I used a photographer who works alone. She doesn't have assistants. She shoots on film. So we were carrying bags of film out into fields, and I'd be touching up my lipstick, and then I'd run out into a field and she'd take pictures. It was really fun, honestly.
I was going to say, it must have been really amazing as a songwriter too. I was thinking about these two albums in relation to your career and how in a weird way, and I don't mean this in any relation to in any negative reaction to your previous albums because you know how I feel, but the process itself of writing songs from a very pure place with no plans. Because you make your debut album with nothing but ambition. That's a plan. That's a big plan. And then from there, the plans start to increase and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And to your point, you're looking for the next plan. I just don't feel like there were any plans here. Did it feel like you could get to a pure place this year without all those plans?
Yes, it did. Pure is a really, really perfect word for that. Because what happens to you as your career builds and builds and builds and builds is that if you've accomplished a thing in the past, all of a sudden you're expected to accomplish that thing plus another new thing plus this other thing over here. It becomes sort of like, I had felt at times when I felt a lot of pressure, I had felt like I was doing some sort of like obstacle course. And that's not how you should feel when you're creating. You shouldn't feel like I need to make a track list where this one's for the stadium show, this one's for radio, this one's for people who want to get in their feelings. Check. And you can end up doing that. And it's good to have friends who are artists who have.
You talk to a lot of people in this scene as well. Like I'm in a lucky position where I'm able to talk to a lot of people in the music industry, and I don't know, in a crazy timeline. Maybe one day I get to talk to the amazing person we're watching right now. I don't think that's ever gonna happen, but you never know. I like to think that door is like 1% open. I can see the light creeping through it. But what I was going to say is amazing when you talk to people in this scene, both like as someone who's like me, who's lucky enough to be able to talk to both YouTubers and artists and producers and everyone behind the scenes in music, is I'm able to talk to people and they all say what Taylor's basically saying here, which is they never stop. They never slow down. Like they like a lot of them live nice lives and comfortable lives, but mentally they're always trying to climb the ladder, and when they reach the next one, their hands already reaching for the next one, and they never have a moment to settle and to look at where they are, and every time they achieve something, they need to achieve the next thing, and if they didn't achieve it and they've dropped, they need to work out what happened and redo it and try again. And I imagine it's like that for a lot of people, just with any job. But it's interesting how every person feels like that in this scene.
Have similar
even Taylor.
Pressures, like Ed Sheeran and I talk about this a great deal. This was a time when we both stepped back, and I would say to him, this is the first time I felt like I threw the checklist away. Like I threw it away, and I definitely could have gone into the pandemic thinking I've got to wait for everything to open up so I can do things exactly the way that I'm used to doing them. But then about 3 days in, I thought, wait, this could be an opportunity for me to do things in a way I haven't ever done them before? What would my work sound like if I took away all of my fear-based checklisting that I have inflicted on myself?
Wow.
So I
That's
guess
huge.
you know the answer now. Yeah.
To me, there's an interesting correlation here between
I really love the energy of this interview.
these two albums and this idea of getting into a pure space, the freedom and the space being another key word to this.
This is definitely one of those reactions, because as a reaction channel, you know what reactions are going to do well, what reactions aren't going to do well. And I mention this sometimes in Taylor reaction. This is definitely one of those ones, probably not going to do that well for views. Like 2,500 views, I reckon. So if you're watching this right now, just know you're one of the awesome people who supports this channel. But you're also one of the people like me who's completely crazy and just wants to know everything. And I think that's what makes this video so cool. Which is why when I do these reactions, I never really give a fuck about the views. I don't care, because I'm more just excited at watching this myself and you guys watching it with me and us learning all of these amazing things. And I have to say, I love this interview. I love how it's been done. The interviewer gives off an amazing energy, which brings Taylor down to matching that energy, and we just have this really... I feel like I'm in a room with these guys. They're in like a coffee shop, and I'm just sitting on the table over, just watching them. And they're having this conversation. It feels so natural and just comfortable, and I'm just listening. I'm just being cheeky and nosy, and I'm just listening to these two people have a conversation.
Into a pure space, the freedom and the space being another key word to this. And the idea of going back and re-recording your music. Do you see a correlation between reflecting the person you've been and becoming the person you want that you are and are going to be?
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. But it does resonate with me a lot because I was allowed to start re-recording my music in November. By then we had a great deal of Evermore done. I had shot a music video for Willow, but I was still writing and I was still recording. So there would be days where I'd be recording You Belong With Me, and then I'd be recording a song like Happiness, which is on Evermore. And
wow.
It made me feel really proud of sort of the scope of things. And looking back when I was a teenager and I would write about, you know, my troubles in high school and the drama and the pining away and all that stuff. That
must be so bizarre. Her re-recording those songs while writing these newer songs and seeing the different versions of herself in real time is mind-blowing.
All so valid to me at that time in my life. Just as much as Evermore is so valid to my happiness at this time in my life. So it's been I've really felt very grateful lately for people giving me the ability to grow up creatively. And I know there have been snags and there have been times where people have been like, I don't like her, several times. But for the most part, I feel a great amount of gratitude that I was able to make music from the time I was a teenager to the time that I'm 31.
And normally, you know, you put those songs out and then you have to let them go. And even when you perform them in front of people, I often feel like they belong more to the fans and to the audience sometimes than they even do to the artists, you know. And getting a chance to re-record them for whatever reason, whatever prompted this thing, the fact that you get to go and listen to these and re-record them, I wonder if it brings you closer to them and changes your feelings towards songs that often people just record and move on from. Don't even listen to again as artists unless they're playing them.
Yes, it does. It makes me feel really close to those songs again. And it also reminds me that obviously I want to keep a lot of cool surprises for the fans until I'm ready to show them fully to everyone. But the reason that I feel so passionately that artists should own their catalogs is because if you are the creator of all of this music, you're the only one who actually knows the ins and the outs of it. You're the only one who knows what almost was written. You're the only one who knows the kind of secrets of the journey of making this music. So
I never even thought about that. I imagine when you don't own your own catalog as well, that you might be in times forced to release something you're not entirely proud of, which must be quite demoralizing. You're half writing a song, you're not really feeling it, not really enjoying it, and maybe you create a song and you're like, this is not a very good song, but you're forced to release it. You know, it's like that song has to be released, you know, because the whole process of making it has gone through this label, has gone through the studio. They know it exists. They want it out in the public. And even though it's your song, you don't have as much of a say as you'd like. And that must be very bizarre.
actually the only one who has the ability to share it with the fans in the way that
But now Taylor can make sure
can make
everything that
everyone the
comes out
happiest and the most excited.
is
So
exactly like that.
it's been really fulfilling in a way that I had no idea what to expect. You don't want to feel like it's like, you know, your homework got destroyed and so now you have to redo your homework. It's not like that at all.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all.
You got to go
It's
into it like this is an
fulfilling.
opportunity. And also, you know, you talked about artists owning their catalog, and I've been talking to artists for most of my life. And there's one thing that continues to crop up, and I think that, you know, your perspective would be really, really interesting here, which is, why do you think that as artists we put security and stability before artistic control and freedom as young artists?
We don't make that conscious decision. We aren't given the information oftentimes, and that's why I'm having lots of conversations behind the scenes with record labels and trying to help them understand this from a psychological perspective, what you do to an artist when you separate them from their work. You break something, and I'm trying to figure out how to put that thing back together in a way that heals what was broken by a system that is not designed for artists to have a chance at, you know, that's an artist's pension plan. That's their retirement. That's their legacy. That's what they want to leave to their children.
And how could you ever know? How could you ever know the life you're going to live? How could you ever know what's going to happen, right? A coming of age has come and gone, right? How could you ever know that?
Yeah, good quote. But yeah, I was 15, 14 when I was in record deal negotiations. So you can't really go back and say, wow, what a conscious choice that was made. You don't know the music industry until you know it. I
think this is a problem you see quite a lot with the world in general. And I think you're seeing it quite a lot in politics now, where money is the main focus of every decision, and that's the same with the record labels. Sadly, it's all money focused. It's these artists come in, dollar signs cha-ching in their eyes, and immediately all decisions are, this person can make lots of money, they don't have any money, here's what looks like a lot of money to you right now, oh, look how shiny that is, sign here, yeah, now you're ours. And that's how it works. And I imagine it's incredibly difficult for someone like Taylor to, even with her prestige and power and knowledge of the industry, to gain that respect. And I know it sounds nuts saying that, but I imagine it's true with these labels, to be able to go in there and be like, this is wrong, because all they see is money. So to find the heart inside of something you don't even know if they have a heart must be so difficult, even for someone like Taylor.
Because I have learned what I've learned, I really just want to make things better for other people. And I want that to start at the record deal, in the contract. Artists should never have to part with their work. They should own it from day one, but they should license it back to the label so that the label can make back their money over a certain amount of time. And that amount of time should be what's negotiated upon. It should not be a question moving forward. And if I can do anything to change that for a young artist in the future, or many, or all of them, then that's, you know, I'm going to keep being loud about it.
It's an incredible observation at a brilliant age to come to that. And at the time of recording, your birthday's in a couple of days. By the time this is seen, it's probably about 24 hours ago. To protect myself from the Swifties, I got to say happy birthday, even though you haven't had your birthday.
Thank you.
It's all very DeLorean kind of nightmare for me right now. I'm in some Back to the Future vortex. But anyway, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Like that.
I wanted to talk
Happy
about
birthday, Taylor!
this
For the past
album
and the future.
and the word I mentioned at the beginning, closure, is something that keeps coming up on Evermore.
Good word.
As a listener and a
Yes.
fan of your music. But it's got to start somewhere. The album and the journey has to start somewhere. And it starts with Willow. And it's, I don't often ask this question. I wish I did. Why is that the first song on the album? And you're the artist to ask it to, Taylor, because it's definitely a reason.
I liked opening the album with that because I loved the feeling that I got immediately upon hearing the instrumental that Aaron created for it. It felt strangely, I say witchy, and
Wiccan.
I stand by that. It felt like somebody standing over a potion, making a love potion, dreaming up the person that they want and the person they desire, and trying to figure out how to get that person in their life.
I like that.
And all the kind of misdirection and bait and switch and complexity that goes into seeing someone, feeling a connection, wanting them, and trying to make them a part of your life. It's it's tactical at times. It's confused.
So almost like someone standing over this cauldron, creating this potion, doing all of these things, but it not being a simple throw this in, poof, like a complicated one, almost like science over magic.
Using at times.
It's interesting.
Totally.
It's up to fate. It's magical.
It's called manifestation. That's how human beings actually make sense of it. It's we're manifesting, but it's something else. It's something else.
Yeah.
It's a whole combination of all of it.
Yeah, it felt a bit magical and mysterious, which is what I wanted people to feel going into an album that was a collection of these stories. That we're going to take them in all kinds of directions. So I wanted to start them with sort of a setting of the vibe. But what you say about closure is really, really profound, because with Folklore, one of the main themes throughout that was conflict resolution, right? Like trying to figure out how to get through something with someone, or making confessions, or trying to tell them something, trying to communicate with them.
Yeah.
Evermore deals a lot in endings of all sorts, shapes and sizes.
Yeah, good.
All the kinds of ways we can
actually.
end a relationship, a friendship, something.
Amazing how these two albums feel so fucking similar, but when something as obvious as that is pointed out, you see the significant differences in the two. Similar in sound, but not similar in creation.
Toxic, and the pain that goes along with that.
Never
the
even
phases
thought
of
about that
So
comparison.
it's cool that you noticed that.
I mean, it opens up so many possibilities for you as a writer once, you get to a point where you feel you don't have to stick to that linear narrative. And it's a very brilliant narrative. But the idea of like, I love you, we fell out, we broke up, there's pain, there's joy. When you start to look at all the other open endings and you go deeper, and it requires some real character analysis and development in order to do that successfully, because you kind of...
That is actually very true of Taylor's music, because Taylor doesn't just write songs that are we get into a relationship, we have an argument, we make up, we break up, right? Taylor doesn't just write songs like that. Taylor writes these complicated songs where someone's like, people like the audience, the viewers, the singers, the listeners, everybody, or the artists and the audience alike, everyone who listens to it has their own opinions and formulates their own opinions on which characters that Taylor creates are in the right and in the wrong, and this character shouldn't have done this, that character should have done that, and there's a whole open end of experiences and emotions to be felt here, and sometimes we don't agree with what the resolve, and I love that she can, like is being said here, create a complicated emotional song, not a formulaic one.
It requires some real character analysis and development in order to do that successfully, because you kind of lived all those lives, but you might have learnt a thing or two about your own by doing so. Have there been moments during writing of these albums where you've learnt things about yourself that you would never have learnt if you'd been focused on that specific emotional feeling?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you watch a film or you read a book and there's a character that you identify with, you most of the time identify with them because they're targeting something in you that feels that you've been there. That's why we relate to characters. And so when I was reading, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and I was thinking, wow, her husband just tolerates her. She's doing all these things and she's trying so hard and she's trying to impress him and he's just tolerating her the whole time. There was a part of me that was, relating to that because at some point in my life I felt that way. And so I ended up writing this song, Tolerate It, that's all about sort of trying to love someone who's ambivalent. Thank you.
It's unreal.
Thank you so much.
And I mean, even a song like Champagne Problems, all right, let's talk about that. There's unrequited love. That's a well-written topic in the arts. But then there's that song. That song, that is one of the most heartbreaking tales of unrequited love I've ever heard in my entire life. And it shouldn't be written by somebody who is honestly and obviously very much in love. So I don't know how you got there.
Well, Joe and I really love sad songs. We've always bonded over music, so it was...
Clearly, you've written some of the saddest songs of your career together. What's going on?
Songs. We just really love sad songs. What can I say? He started that one and came up with the melodic structure of it. And I say it was a surprise that we started writing together, but in a way it wasn't, because we have always bonded over music and had the same musical tastes, and he's always the person who's showing me songs by artists, and then they become my favorite songs or whatever. But Champagne Problems was one of my favorite bridges to write. I really love a bridge where you tell the full story in the bridge, like you really you shift gears.
I love that. I think that's a really good explanation as well, because Taylor does do that with her bridges, where the whole song will be like drip feeding you the story. And you're getting, and like, because I have that when I'm listening to Taylor's songs, and I had it a lot of Evermore. I'd be like, I'm not really understanding what the story is here. I don't know what's going on, what this character means, what that character means. And the bridge will come along, and it's like Taylor just goes, right, for anyone who didn't understand, pulls down like a board and goes, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, finish. And you're like, oh, that's what the song was about. Thank you, Taylor.
Years in that bridge.
Love it.
I'm so excited to one day be in front of a crowd when they all sing, "She would have made such a lovely bride. What a shame she's fucked in the head." Like,
yeah, it's broken.
Because I know it's so sad. I know it's so sad, but it's those songs like All Too Well. Performing the song All Too Well is one of the most joyful experiences I ever go through when I perform live. So when there's a song like Champagne Problems where you know it's so sad, you know that, but I love a sad song, you know?
What's it like?
Right. That feels like the perfect place to stop. Don't we all agree? That's a perfect place. So that is where we're going to stop part 1 of this giant freaking hour-long interview. And I do want to end just saying, the fact that she said All Too Well is one of her most joyous live songs to perform, Taylor, you are crazy. That song fucks me up unbelievably so. How dare you? How dare you take happiness in the pain of everyone who hears that song? I can't listen to All Too Well without being like broken. Especially the 10-minute version. That one hits like a freaking gut punch. That is a tough one to listen to. And now I know that Taylor is up there cackling behind those beautiful shining eyes of hers, just giggling and performing this song that is breaking the hearts of Swifties. She's evil. She is an evil lady, this Taylor Swift. She is evil. I can't believe that. That's so, and she said it with such a big smile. She's like, that's my favorite song. She is evil. That's hilarious. Her and Jack just writing songs together, just giggling. This is so, oh my God, it's so sad. Yeah. And then let's have this person die. Oh, that's so sad. The Swifties are going to cry like crazy. They're going to hate that. Oh, it's the best. They're going to love it. Oh my word. She's so mean. What a freaking brilliant interview. So good. And after just finishing Evermore and watching something like this, I feel like this is the bow like tying the perfect present together. I really do. This was a great idea. Well done, you amazing Swifties. Well done for recommending this. I can't imagine it's the best content to consume reaction wise. It's more of something I imagine you'd just like listen to on a podcast or something like that. But for me, I personally really, I haven't been on a podcast in a while. It's been a while. Maybe I need to get back on an episode of our hits, Differently Girls. I watch a lot of their videos, so if you're not subscribed to my good friends on Hits Differently, make sure you are, because they're wonderful. Yeah, it's been a while. I would like to go on another podcast. I don't know. Anyone ever wants to invite me on one, let me know. Or if you follow any other Swifties and stuff, let me know. It could be fun. But yeah, the reason I'm pointing that out is because this is something that, again, I imagine isn't that best, but would be more of a podcast sort of thing. But I feel like it is just so perfectly timed with finishing Evermore, and listening to this has been wonderful, and hearing and seeing the passion Taylor has for it, and understanding a little bit more around the process and the parallels and comparisons between Folklore, an album that I felt like was incredibly similar, and seeing how different it was on like the under level is awesome as well. It really is just so well done. Props to the interviewer for delivering such an excellent job at making it feel so casual and yet so professional at the same time. And it's just making it just so enjoyable to consume. Yeah, I love this. Can't wait to check out the rest of it next week. And I hope you guys enjoyed my reaction to it and my thoughts as well. If you've got any thoughts about all of it or anything you want to add, make sure you put them in the comment section down below, because I try and read as many comments as I can. So let me know. And otherwise, have an incredible weekend. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, my friends, you will see me in the next video.